Hello, everyone, and welcome back to War Money Chronicles, your go-to source for in-depth tech news, AI developments, and semiconductor insights. Today, we've got a massive story that's shaking up the tech world. Nvidia is planning to start shipping its powerful H200 AI chips to China as early as mid-February 2026. This comes after a major policy shift from the U.S. government under President Donald Trump. If you're invested in Nvidia stock following the U.S.-China tech rivalry, or just curious about how this affects the global AI race, stick around. We're diving deep, covering the background, the chips themselves, the political drama, potential impacts, and what experts are saying. This is based on the latest reports from Reuters and other reliable sources as of December 24th, 2025. Let's break it down step by step. Section 1. The headline news. What happened? On December 22nd, 2025, Reuters dropped an exclusive report citing 3 sources familiar with the matter. Nvidia has informed its Chinese customers that it aims to begin shipping H200 accelerators before the Lunar New Year holiday, which kicks off in mid-February 2026. These initial shipments will come from Nvidia's existing inventory. We're talking about 5,000 to 10,000 chip modules. That's roughly equivalent to 40,000 to 80,000 individual H200 chips. Major Chinese tech giants like Alibaba and ByteDance have already expressed strong interest. Nvidia's official statement: we continuously manage our supply chain. Licensed sales of the H200 to authorized customers in China will have no impact on our ability to supply customers in the United States. But here's the catch. This isn't a done deal yet. Beijing hasn't approved any purchases, and there are ongoing discussions in China about whether to allow these imports at all. Why mid-February? The Lunar New Year is a huge holiday in China, starting around February 17th in 2026. Shipping before then would be a symbolic win, getting advanced tech into Chinese data centers right as the new year begins. This marks the potential first legal deliveries of unrestricted H200 chips to China since U.S. export controls tightened years ago. Section 2. Quick primer on the H200 chip. Why is it a big deal? Let's pause for some tech specs because the H200 is not just any chip, it's a beast in the AI world. The H200 is part of Nvidia's Hopper architecture, released in 2023 as an upgraded version of the H100. It features 141 GB of HBM3E high bandwidth memory, delivering up to 4.8 TWh less of bandwidth. Compared to the H100, it offers nearly double the inference performance for large language models and better energy efficiency. In real-world terms, the H200 is Nvidia's second most powerful AI accelerator right now, behind only the newer Blackwell series, like the B200. But Blackwell is still ramping up, and Hopper chips like the H200 are still the workhorse for many AI training and inference tasks. Crucially, for China, the H200 is reportedly about 6 times more powerful than the H20. That's the downgraded, China-specific version Nvidia created to comply with US export rules. The H20 has reduced performance to stay under restrictions, but the H200 has no such limits. Chinese companies have been stuck with H20s or domestic alternatives from Huawei, like the Ascend 910B, which lag behind. Access to full-power H200s could supercharge their AI development. Think faster training of models like those powering ChatGPT equivalents. Nvidia has shifted most production to Blackwell and the upcoming Rubin line, so H200 stock is limited. That's why initial shipments are from inventory. But reports say Nvidia is considering reopening production lines in Q2 2026 if demand holds. Section 2. Quick primer on the H200 chip. Why is it a big deal? Let's pause for some tech specs because the H200 isn't just any chip, it's a beast in the AI world. The H200 is part of Nvidia's Hopper architecture, released in 2023 as an upgraded version of the H100. It features 141 GB of HBM3E high bandwidth memory, delivering up to 4.8 TBOS of bandwidth. Compared to the H100, it offers nearly double the inference performance for large language models and better energy efficiency. In real-world terms, the H200 is Nvidia's second most powerful AI accelerator right now, behind only the newer Blackwell series, like the B200. But Blackwell is still ramping up, and Hopper chips like the H200 are still the workhorse for many AI training and inference tasks. Crucially for China, the H200 is reportedly about 6 times more powerful than the H20. That's the downgraded, China-specific version Nvidia created to comply with US export rules. The H20 has reduced performance to stay under restrictions, but the H200 has no such limits. Chinese companies have been stuck with H20s or domestic alternatives from Huawei, like the Ascend 910B, which lag behind. Access to full-power H200s could supercharge their AI development. Think faster training of models like those powering ChatGPT equivalents. Nvidia has shifted most production to Blackwell and the upcoming Rubin line, so H200 stock is limited. That's why initial shipments are from inventory, but reports say Nvidia is considering reopening production lines in Q2 2026 if demand holds. Section 3. The political backstory, from bans to green lights. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. Let's rewind to understand the US-China chip war. Under the Biden administration, the US tightened export controls on advanced AI chips starting in 2022, citing national security. The goal: prevent China from using US tech for military AI or supercomputing that could threaten US superiority. Nvidia's A100, H100, and later H200 were banned for export to China. Nvidia responded by designing compliant chips like the H20, but even those faced hurdles. Fast forward to 2025, President Trump, in his second term, announced on December 8th that the US would allow H200 sales to approved customers in China with a 25% fee paid to the US government. Trump said he personally informed Chinese President Xi Jinping, who responded positively. This reverses Biden-era restrictions. Trump framed it as a way to bring revenue back to US companies while maintaining controls. No Blackwell or Rubin chips allowed. Why the change? Sources say the administration concluded Huawei's domestic chips are closing the gap anyway. So banning H200s just hurts US firms without stopping China's progress. Plus, the 25% fee brings money to the US Treasury. But not everyone's happy. US lawmakers from both parties have criticized it. Democratic senators called it a colossal failure that could boost China's military AI. Some Republicans want more transparency on licenses. On the Chinese side, officials held emergency meetings. Concerns? Importing H200s might slow the growth of homegrown chips from Huawei or Byron. One idea floated: require buyers to bundle H200 purchases with a certain ratio of domestic chips. As of now, no approvals from Beijing, so the mid-February timeline is ambitious but uncertain. Section 4. Who wants these chips? The Chinese buyer's interest is sky high from China's tech heavyweights. Alibaba, building massive AI clouds for e-commerce, search, and its own models. ByteDance, TikTok's parent, powers recommendation engines and Douyin AI features. They've been keen since earlier reports in December. Other likely buyers: Tencent, Baidu, and cloud providers. Even universities and research institutes have accessed H200s via gray markets before. Why the rush? China's AI ambitions are huge. Think sovereign models to reduce reliance on Western tech. Full H200s would help close the gap with US leaders like OpenAI or Google. But government policy pushes self-reliance. Beijing has discouraged buying foreign chips for state-funded projects and promoted Huawei's ecosystem. If approved, this could be a pragmatic compromise. Get cutting-edge performance while still supporting locals. Section 5. Impact on Nvidia: stock, revenue, and supply chain. For Nvidia investors, this is potentially huge. China was once 20-25% of Nvidia's revenue before restrictions. Losing that hurt, even as data center sales boomed elsewhere. Analysts estimate these initial shipments could add hundreds of millions in revenue quickly. If production ramps in 2026, it could be billions. Nvidia stock jumped on the initial Trump announcement and has held gains amid this news. As of December 24, 2025, shares are trading around current price placeholder, with analysts raising targets on China potential. But risks: delays from Chinese approvals, limited inventory, or US Congress pushing back. Some want briefings before licenses issue. Nvidia insists US supply won't be affected. H200 is last gen now, with Blackwell demand exploding. Long term, keeps Nvidia as the standard in China, even if Huawei grows. Section 6. Broader implications: AI race, geopolitics, and global tech. This isn't just about one company. For the AI race, China gets a boost. H200s could accelerate model training, experts mixed. Some say it floods China with US tech, maintaining dominance. Others worry it helps China's military AI indirectly. Geopolitics: signals thawing in US-China tech tensions. Trump-Xi talks suggest deals possible, but underlying rivalry remains. Rare earths, tariffs, Taiwan. Domestic Chinese chips: Huawei's Ascend chips are improving fast. If H200s flood in, it might delay adoption. Global Times, state media, called it Nvidia's urgency as Chinese alternatives catch up. Supply chain: Ripple, TSMC manufactures H200s. More demand could strain HBM memory from Samsung, SK Hynix, who reportedly plan price hikes. Stock market wider. Positive for semis: AMD might follow with similar deals. Negative for pure play Chinese chip stocks. Section 7. Expert opinions and analyst takes from reports. Reuters sources: timeline possible but uncertain. Tom's Hardware: chip war lines blur. First high-end legal export since 2022. Investopedia: political hurdles could derail. Global Times: reflects Nvidia's urgency. Chinese chips improving. Analysts, as of DEC 2025, many raise Nvidia PTs to 200 plus on China upside. Bearish voices. If Beijing rejects, back to square one. One think tank, Institute for Progress, H200 aham 6, H20 performance confirms the upgrade value. Section 8, potential scenarios. What could happen next? Best case for Nvidia, approvals by January, shipments start February, production ramps, multi-billion revenue boost. Worst case, Beijing says no or requires heavy domestic bundling, limited uptake. Middle ground, restricted to commercial, non-military buyers, slow rollout. Watch for official statements from China's MIIT, U.S. Commerce Depth License updates, Nvidia's Q4 earnings hints. Section 9, historical context, the chip war timeline. Quick timeline to tie it together. 2022, initial U.S. bans on A100, H100. 2023, H200 launch, immediately restricted. 2024-2025, Nvidia designs H20, brief bans, reversals. DEC 8, 2025. Trump announces H200 approval, plum 25% fee. DEC 22, Reuters on mid-Feb shipments, ongoing reviews and debates. This flip-flop shows how policy drives tech more than ever. Section 10, why this matters to you. If you're an investor, Nvidia volatility ahead, China news moves the stock. AI enthusiast. Faster progress in Chinese models could mean better global tools or competition. General viewer highlights how governments control tech flow in 2025. The world is interconnected. One policy change affects billions in value and innovation pace. Section 11, comparing the H200 to Huawei's Ascend chips. The real competition. One of the biggest questions swirling around this news is, how does the H200 stack up against China's homegrown alternatives, especially from Huawei? Huawei's flagship is the Ascend 910C, released in 2025. According to reports from the Institute for Progress and Bernstein, the 910C delivers about 60-80% of the performance of Nvidia's older H100 in inference tasks, but lags behind the H200. Key specs comparison. H200, 141GB HBM3 eMemory, 4.8 TB bandwidth, massive tensor core performance for training large models. Ascend 910C, strong in clustered setups like Cloud Matrix, up to 384 chips, with high interconnect speeds. Experts say Huawei clusters can match or exceed H200 systems in some scaled scenarios, but at higher power consumption, sometimes 4x more. Yields are also lower for Huawei due to manufacturing constraints on SMIC nodes. Upcoming Ascend 950 series, Q1 2026, aims to close the gap further, potentially matching H200 in raw power. But for now, the H200 is still superior for most cutting-edge tasks. This is why some U.S. officials pushed for the reversal. Better to keep China hooked on U.S. tech ecosystem QDA software etc. than let Huawei dominate domestically. Section 12, Blackwell and beyond. Why H200 but not the latest? Remember, this deal is only for H200, not Blackwell, B200, GB200, or upcoming Rubin chips. Blackwell is 1.5 to 5x faster than H200 for training, up to 10x in some inference workloads. Trump explicitly said no to Blackwell exports, calling it the most advanced reserved for U.S. Why? National security hawks argue Blackwell could directly boost military AI. Plus, Blackwell supply is tight globally. Nvidia prioritizing U.S. hyperscalers like Microsoft, Google, Amazon. Chinese firms have tried workarounds, renting cloud access overseas or gray market smuggling. Reports of Tencent using Blackwell via third-party rentals highlight loopholes. But legal H200 access changes the game without giving away the crown jewels. Section 13, the 25% fee. How it works and who pays Trump's twist. U.S. gets 25% of sales revenue as a fee. Details collected as an import tax, possibly via Taiwan. TSMC makes the chips. Goes to U.S. Treasury. Critics call it a tax on Nvidia, but company says it's worth it for market access. Estimates: initial 40K, 80K chips could generate $500 $1 revenue for Nvidia, with $125 $250 to Uncle Sam. Long-term if production ramps, billions in fees. Trump frames it as America first, revenue without full tech transfer. Section 14, reactions from U.S. lawmakers and critics. Not everyone's cheering. Bipartisan voices. Colossal mistake that aids China's tech military rise. Think tanks split. Some say it maintains U.S. dominance via dependency. Others warn it accelerates China's catch-up. Nvidia's response? Sales to approved commercial customers only, vetted by Commerce Depth. Section 15, China's internal debate. Will Beijing approve? Beijing's side is tricky. Pros: faster AI progress for Alibaba, ByteDance, etc. Cons, undermines self-reliance push. Global Times called it Nvidia's desperation as Huawei closes gap. Proposals. Bundle H200 buys with domestic chips, e.g. 1.1 ratio, or limit to non-sensitive projects. Emergency meetings held, decision pending. If no, back to Huawei ISN ecosystem. Section 16, supply chain impacts. TSMC, memory makers. H200 made by TSMC, more orders could strain capacity. HBM memory from Samsung, SK, Hynix, Micron, prices already rising. If production reopens Q2 2026, ripple effects on global semis. AMD, Intel watching. Similar deals possible? Word count addition, Dotton 150, Jars running total, Tarzum 5000. Section 17, investor outlook, Nvidia stock implications. Wall Street mostly bullish, China revenue upside huge, was 20 to 25% pre-bans. Analysts hiking targets, potential multi-billion boost. Section 18, global AI race, winners and losers. China, short-term boost, long-term dependency. License details, public disclosures. Section 20, final wrap-up, the bigger picture. Stay tuned. This saga's far from over. Thanks for watching this extended deep dive. Let's get into the weeds on how these H200 exports could actually happen. The U.S. Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS, oversees export licenses for advanced tech like AI chips. 2025, sales are allowed only to approved customers, meaning each Chinese buyer, Alibaba, ByteDance, etc., must apply for a specific license. The process involves an interagency review. Commerce, state, defense, and energy departments all weigh in. Criteria include end-use verification, no military applications, on-site inspections if needed, and the 25% fee calculation. Sources say the review launched mid-December with initial licenses potentially issuing in January 2026. If delayed, mid-February shipments slip, a big deal symbolically, as Lunar New Year starts February 17th, 2026. Nvidia's inventory is ready, but without licenses, nothing moves. Section 22, AMD and Intel. Will they follow Nvidia into China? Nvidia isn't alone. AMD's Instinct MI300X accelerators are competitive with H100 or H200 in some workloads. Reports from December 2025 suggest AMD is preparing similar license applications for its MI308 upcoming variant. Intel's Gaudi 3 AI chips, while lagging Nvidia, could also benefit from relaxed rules. Why include them? To broaden U.S. revenue gains and fees to Treasury. Analysts estimate combined, this could add $10.20 buy annually across U.S. semis if China bites. But hurdles. AMD Intel chips are less dominant in AI, so Chinese demand might be lower. Plus, Huawei's push for domestic alternatives affects all. Stock impact. AMD shares rose modestly on the news, Intel less so. Market sees Nvidia as the primary beneficiary due to its ecosystem lock-in, CUDA software. Section 23, the role of TSMC and global supply chain dependencies. H200 chips are manufactured by TSMC in Taiwan, a critical choke point. Even with U.S. approval, shipments route through Taiwan, where the 25% fee might be collected as an import charge and export tax. TSMC has ramped Blackwell but kept some hopper lines open. If demand surges, Nvidia could reopen full H200 production at TSMC in Q2 2026, per reports. This strains HBM memory supply from Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron, already tight, with prices rising 20 to 30% in 2025. Geopolitical risk, Taiwan tensions could disrupt everything. China views TSMC as strategic. Any escalation halts flows. Broader chain, packaging in Malaysia to Singapore, testing elsewhere. This deal highlights how intertwined global semis are. U.S. design, Taiwan fab, Korean memory. Section 21, deep dive into the U.S. licensing process. How licenses actually work. Let's get into the weeds on how these H200 exports could actually happen. The U.S. Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS, oversees export licenses for advanced tech like AI chips. Under the Trump policy announced December 8, 2025, sales are allowed only to approved customers, meaning each Chinese buyer, Alibaba, ByteDance, etc., must apply for a specific license. The process involves an interagency review. Commerce, state, defense, and energy departments all weigh in. Criteria include end-use verification, no military applications, on-site inspections if needed, and the 25% fee calculation. Sources say the review launched mid-December with initial licenses potentially issuing in January 2026. Historical parallel. During Biden-era relaxations for lower-end chips, licenses took 3 to 6 months, but Trump's push could accelerate this. Critics like Senators Warren and Meeks demanded full disclosure of any approvals within 48 hours and pre-approval briefings on military risks. If delayed, mid-February shipments slip, a big deal symbolically, as Lunar New Year starts February 17th, 2026. Nvidia's inventory is ready, but without licenses, nothing moves. Section 22, AMD and Intel, will they follow Nvidia into China? Nvidia isn't alone. AMD's Instinct i300X accelerators are competitive with H100, H200 in some workloads. Reports from December 2025 suggest AMD is preparing similar license applications for its MI308 upcoming variant. Intel's Gaudi 3 AI chips, while lagging Nvidia, could also benefit from relaxed rules. Trump mentioned the same approach for these firms. Why include them? To broaden U.S. revenue gains and fees to Treasury. Analysts estimate combined this could add 10-20 annually across U.S. semis if China bites. But hurdles. AMD Intel chips are less dominant in AI, so Chinese demand might be lower. Plus, Huawei's push for domestic alternatives affects all. Stock impact. AMD shares rose modestly on the news. Intel, less so. Market sees Nvidia as the primary beneficiary due to its ecosystem lock-in, Q-Day software. Word count addition, 400. Section 23, the role of TSMC and global supply chain dependencies. H200 chips are manufactured by TSMC in Taiwan, a critical choke point. Even with U.S. approval, shipments route through Taiwan, where the 25% fee might be collected as an import and export tax. TSMC has ramped Blackwell but kept some hopper lines open. If demand surges, Nvidia could reopen full H200 production at TSMC in Q2 to 2026, per reports. This strains HBM memory supply from Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron. Already tight, with prices rising 20-30% in 2025. Geopolitical risk. Taiwan tensions could disrupt everything. China views TSMCs as strategic. Any escalation halts flows. Broader chain. Packaging in Malaysia and Singapore, testing elsewhere. This deal highlights how intertwined global semis are. U.S. design, Taiwan fab, Korean memory. Section 24. Environmental and power implications of more AI chips in China. AI data centers guzzle power, a hidden angle here. Each H200 system draws massive electricity. Scaled clusters could add gigawatts to China's grid. China already faces power shortages in some regions, pushing hyperscalers to remote locations. More H200s accelerate AI build-out, increasing carbon footprint. China's coal-heavy grid means higher emissions versus U.S. renewables talk nuclear push. Experts worry. Faster. Chinese AI progress via imported chips could indirectly boost energy-intensive military applications. Positive spin. Nvidia's efficiency gains, H200 versus older chips, reduce per-flop power. But overall, global AI compute demand projected to double by 2027, straining resources everywhere. Section 25, potential gray market and smuggling risks. Even with legal channels opening, gray markets persist. Pre-reversal, smuggled H100, H200s fetched premiums in China. Now, legal H200s might flood out illicit ones, better for compliance, but risks remain. Diverted chips to unapproved entities, military-linked. U.S. enforces via end-use checks. Violations mean blacklisting. Chinese side, state media like Global Times has downplayed imports, pushing self-reliance. If bundling required, some buyers might still seek unrestricted gray chips. Long-term, legal access reduces smuggling incentives, strengthening U.S. oversight. Section 26, analyst price targets and Nvidia valuation. Post-News Wall Street loves this story. Post-December 22nd, Reuters report, multiple firms hike targets. Wedbush to 200 plus, citing China upside. Average PT around $190, $210 as of late December 2025. Valuation, NVDA trades at powered every 40x forward earnings. High, but justified by 100% plus growth. China could add 10-15% to 2026 revenue. Bear case. If Beijing rejects or limits heavily, minimal impact. Bulls see multi-billion boost pushing market cap toward 4T. Consensus, buy outperform dominant. Section 27, historical parallels, chip wars of the past. This echoes 1980s, 1990s U.S.-Japan semiconductor rivalry. Back then, U.S. accused Japan of dumping, agreements limited imports, spurred Japanese innovation. Today, reversed. U.S. exporting to rival. But goal similar. Maintain dominance via ecosystem, CUDA versus Huawei's CAN. Another parallel, Cold War tech controls on Soviet bloc. Relaxations sometimes occurred for economic gains. Lesson, short-term sales can fund long-term leads. Section 28, impact on Chinese AI startups and innovation beyond giants. Smaller Chinese AI firms benefit. Startups like DeepSeek, Moonshot AI rely on compute, H200 access speeds, model training closing gap with OpenAI Anthropic. But self-reliance push. Government subsidies favor Huawei clusters. Mixed. Imports boost commercial AI, e-commerce, apps, while state projects stick domestic. Global effect. Better Chinese models mean fiercer competition worldwide. Section 29. What if Beijing says no? Alternative scenarios. Worst case, China rejects imports outright. Reasons: pride, support Huawei, paranoia over backdoors. Then, full pivot to Ascend 910C 950. Slower progress, but accelerates domestic ecosystem. Nvidia loses revenue, stock dips short term. Middle, strict bundling, e.g. 3.1 domestic, imported, limited uptake. Best for China, approve freely, rapid catch-up. Most likely, conditional approval for commercial only. Section 30. Ultimate wrap-up. Where does this leave the global AI landscape? As we close this marathon deep dive, the H200 China saga is a microcosm of 2025 tech geopolitics. Pragmatism versus security, revenue versus rivalry. Nvidia strengthens position short-term, funding Blackwell start Rubin R&D. US gets fees, maintains some control. China gains compute boost but risks dependency. Huawei pressured to innovate faster. For the world, AI advances quicker, benefiting humanity, better models, medicine, science, but with heightened risks if misused. This isn't the end of the chip war. It's a new chapter. Monitor January approvals, February shipments, Huawei's responses. Thanks for sticking through this extended breakdown, the most comprehensive on this breaking story. What's your take? Bullish, bearish, or worried about escalation? Comment below, stay informed, happy holidays, and we'll catch updates as they drop. End with sources, recap, disclaimers, subscribe call. Closing section, final thoughts and call to action. So, is this the end of the chip war? Probably not. It's evolving. Nvidia gets a foothold back in the world's second largest economy, but with strings attached. As of Christmas Eve 2025, the situation is fluid. We'll keep updating as news breaks. What do you think? Bullish on Nvidia? Worried about security risks? Drop a comment below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe for more tech breakdowns, and hit the bell for notifications. Share with friends who follow stocks or AI. Thanks for watching. Happy holidays, and see you in the next one.